Good morning, learners and viewers. Welcome to the session of Logistics and Supply Chain Management, MMPO005. Today, in this session, we will be discussing about and talking about transportation, warehousing, what they are, how do they work, and how they are important for the supply chain management. We will start with transportation. Basically, the thing is that what is meant by transportation? Thus, we are aware that this is the most fundamental part of the strategic logistic management. It comprises includes of all costs associated with the movement of products from one location to the other. And if we talk about in terms of the cost, it ranges from 5 to 6% the total retail value of the product. Transportation is basically the movement of product, material, and services from one area, both in-house and outbound. It can also be said that it is a movement from one node of supply chain to the other. As Pradhan Deshmukh and Monti, by providing for the swift and uninterrupted flow of products back and forth through the chain, transportation provides a sort of lubrication to run the chain smoothly. It also permits penetration of newer markets far from one point of the production. Transportation system has a strategic bearing on a company's operation efficiency. Failure to identify the best transportation mode can directly affect the growth of the company. As higher the transportation cost, the price will rise, which will directly affect the customer satisfaction in a negative way. There are three factors, as they were mentioned by Gatoma and Walter, which are required to be considered are customer, environment, and product and company. Therefore, in order to identify the right transportation system, the following have to be considered. That is the impact of the transport system on the supply chain. And secondly, what are the factors that determine the choice of transport? Who are the customers to your product per se? What are the environmental factors? What is the product? And what is your company's profile? Consideration influencing transportation includes customer communication, how customer places the order. In order to obviate delays in transportation and handling of logistics, both the supplier and the distributor are relying more and more on the electronic transfer system as we are in IT and internet. This will help in considerable reduction of time delays and effect better cooperation between the teams. Then comes the market coverage. Transportation influences the size of the market covered in a big way. The characteristics are costs, flexibility, reliability, and availability. The product per se will influence the economics of the decision. A low volume and high volume value product will be able to support higher costs, which means extended delivery distances and increase in delivery frequency. Then comes your sourcing decision. It depends upon the geographical dimension of the source market. It can influence by low-cost transportation system. Unreliable bulk freight service would extend the source market. It was said by Monty and Deshmukh. Companies therefore have to consider a trade-off between quality, price, and the cost involved in delivering the processing point, that is, the volume and the cost of transportation. Manufacturing operations. Most of the transportations has a direct bearing on the location of manufacturing market sector. That is why extraction-based units are close to the source of raw material, and the products related to the customer satisfaction are closer, that is, near the customer hubs. Then comes your pricing decision. This is again the most important part. Transportation happens to be the important component of product cost. Therefore, selection of the appropriate transportation mode will have a direct bearing on the product cost, perceiving more relevance to the experience. Increase in transportation costs increases the product price, but they are directly affected, not directly. Customer service decisions, both customer service policy and the transportation decisions go hand by hand, and hence one cannot be considered in isolation of the other. It is pertinent to overrule the cost factor while servicing the medical customers, since speed is more important than cost in selecting the transport. That means we can say that it basically depends upon the product value. An effective selection system is we have to get into a system which will help us in transportation. The transport selection can effectively be resolved by adhering to five stages of selection framework. That means what are the stages and how they are related. Stage one is identification of those factors affecting the choice of transport selection. Second stage is categorize the significant factors and identify the potential risks. Stage three is determination of the distribution network depending upon the number and the size of the depots. And stage four is application of matrix analysis for selecting the right transport. Stage 5 is measure and monitor cost continuously. That means with the period of time, this stage 5 has to be taken care of. Now we move to warehousing. As this is one of the most important facets of the logistics scale and work side by side with transportation. It is that segment of logistics function that deals with storage and handling of inventories, starting from supplier receipt to consumption point. The management of this includes the maintenance of accurate and timely information relating to inventory status, location, and disposal. What are the factors which affect the warehousing decision? That is the type of distributor, value of the firm, quantity and potential of obsolescence, however they will be out of the use, competitiveness, and the economic condition. Warehousing performs variety of roles. It is related to material handling, which starts from, basically starts from receiving, storing, and shipping. Then, if you talk in terms of storage, that maximize customer service by improving product and location provision. And comes the transfer of information, because whatever that is the content. This ensures timely and accurate information on inventory status, space utilization, equipment, and manpower availability and transport capacity. In order to develop an effective warehouse strategy, following points have to be taken care of. It is documentation of existing warehouse operations, documentation of the storage facility, and put forth requirements over the planning horizon. Identify the shortfalls within the warehouse that are available, including the deficiencies. Alternate warehousing plans to meet contingency strategy. Selection of best recommendation and update the warehouse strategic plan. As initially we said how to select, but that is what is the method of selection. The selection procedure for a transport mode could vary from simple decision either to identify one feasible method of distribution how to follow the competitors' performance. Market is too big. Competitors are there in the market. We have to take a concise decision how, keeping all factors into consideration, this complex job can be performed well. This is through complex decisions that calculates the cost incurred and produces an optimum solution. Three potential methods were proposed. First one is judgment, that is identification of the important factors affecting the transport mode by the transport manager and the transport mode from one list of alternatives available so that important features of the transport requirements are met. The shortcomings are tremendous in such a process since transport is considered as a service rather than a distribution system. Cost trade-offs. This is one of the most important considerations. Here, the impact of transport is calculated in relation to immediate terminal objectives and activities, and the total cost of the distribution system is optimized. This particular approach acknowledges the existence of trade-offs within the numerous approaches in an attempt to assess the situation to minimize total costs. Distribution models. This identifies and explains the interrelationship between the components of the distribution system at various levels of daily, weekly, monthly demands. These models could be built to explain the impact of alternative transport modes and methods as either the demand changes or the components in the system change. In order to carry out a systematic selection of transport, a framework consisting of the following stages is recommended. Stage 1, which is identifying the factors affecting the choice of the selection. Stage 2 is categorizing the significant factors and identifying the potential risks. Stage 3 is determining the distribution network in terms of number and size of the depots. Stage 4 is applying the matrix analysis to select the most appropriate transport method. And stage 5 is measuring and monitoring cost factors. This has been depicted in the figure, how these 5 stages work. A transportation decision. Determining an organization's transport requirement will be used in the following underlying considerations. That is, the available depots and the size, including movements requirements of raw materials to manufacturing units and finished products to the warehouse on to the consumers. Secondly, the best choice of mode available depending on the distance involved. Third one is product characteristics that will further dictate the type of transport mode to be employed. Next is the choice of equipment in terms of the transport for each segment. The financial option that could be employed in terms of individual type of equipment. The last one is the operation needs in terms of usage to the equipment for maximum utilization and minimum operational cost. That means we have to plan in such way that we can utilize the maximum part of the services available, and that too keeping in mind the minimum operational cost. This diagram basically depicts how the decision framework works and how it is implemented. Then comes your carrier management. Who will carry? Carrier management is critical to the success of their supply chain as it directly impacts your company's logistics cost and resulting profits. The main task of carrier management is to set reasonable price for shipping, services, and meet customers' service requirements in consideration of available cost and human resources. Career management is a complex activity which includes many fold work. Some of them are highlighted over here. It is career or modality selection, scheduling, staffing, pickup delivery arrangements, collective negotiation, documentation, tracking, and billing, then career security and billing payments. This complexity requires careful planning and preparation. Supply chain professionals need to address a variety of management issues in order to make wise career management decisions. Of these issues, career choice can be one of the most important but difficult issues to deal with. The main goal of career choice are to minimize the shipping cost and inventory in transit, and to minimize the fluctuation of transportation. Carrier selection are based on three determinants, that is the cost, time, how early they can, and the reliability, how much supportive and how much the company can depend on their working criteria. These three key criteria can be extended to include other criteria and then subcategorized as cost, time, accessibility, and control and reliability. That means if a job is assigned to, they should have a control and they should hold a liability that they are also involved in it. One of those from the following three carriers depending on the shipping size. Initially, it is a parcel service normally. We know it. That means the volume is low. Small packages and cargo with unit less than 150 pounds. They are sent by parcel services. If it is somewhat more than kgs in pounds, it is LTL carriers, that is correct cargo from various carriers, integrate the cargo into an enclosed trailer and transport the liner to the delivery terminal or hub terminal. Then comes your TL if it is still low. Semi-trailers are typically 26 to 53 feet long. So as a large amount of cargo is required to make such a move economical. TL carriers move cargo at an average speed of 47 miles per hour, including congestion and queues at the intersections. Once the right carrier is selected, the next step is to find a combination of the right and right means of transportation of choice from the available transport modes, that is, trucks, road, railroads, water carriers, and planes. The next stage is the number of size of depots, warehouses, and storehouses. All godowns define the distribution network of a manufacturing company. More the number, more the distribution network. The network of depots will be defined by the numbers, size, and location, which, when combined, minimizes the cost between ex-factory delivery and local distribution depots. Delivery for each other. This was again proposed by Monty and Leach. The distribution depots provide the resources to balance the cost to achieve optimum ex-factory loads and optimum local delivery loads. Once this is defined, it is possible to classify the transport operational requirements into tasks such as management of raw materials of the factories, inter-factory movement, delivery to warehouses, delivery to third-party transport facilities, delivery to satellite depots, that means depots that are too far, and delivery to consumers based on normal priority or emergency. This basically depends on the condition in which it has to be taken care of. A decision matrix approach to be adopted helps in identifying the most appropriate transport option from the substantial range available. This approach uses the following steps. First, initially the selection of initial task, that is required based upon known alternatives like choice of transport, mode of equipment specification, choice of financial options and operational needs. Second is it is to select two options factors so that a matrix can be formed using one in the vertical axis and the other one in the horizontal axis. Then comes your selection of basic alternatives, which adequately covers the conditions imposed by the vertical and horizontal axis. Determination of organization needs by analysis of the important factors generated to produce the matrix and use of the matrix to select the options required. Selection of the resources required by considering the request of the matrix analysis plus other factors of importance. Then the combination of matrix solution is to provide an effective and efficient profile which identifies the transport tasks and appropriate resources for the task. The next stage comes the fleet sizing and configuration, that means the selection of the mode. Fleet sizing objectives is to employ through ownership, hire, lease, and or rental the fewest possible trucks to manage the company's load profile, shipping requirements. Fleet sizing increased availability yields, fewer cost sales, shorter customer cycle times, improved customer services, and higher fleet costs. Fleet sizing protections could be developed a few times during a year and at a time when a major shift in demand pattern occurs. This is what has to be monitored again and again, timely. It can be monthly, after a gap of 3 months, six months, or on year basis, but we have to monitor it to identify the fleet size. Fleet size can be regulated and minimized by utilizing standard size pallets and transport containers, rigorously monitoring fleet utilization level annually, maintaining total fleet feasibility, choosing low use periods to conduct routine maintenance, monitoring and charging them permits for fleet detention by suppliers, and utilizing the alternative arrangements during super peak periods to avoid carrying the burden of an oversized fleet. We have to keep that thing in mind. There is no use if the volume is less. There is no use of using a large container and sending it. That means for that we have to have an alternate method of sending the goods. Then comes your routing and scheduling. As we know that India is one of the best examples of routing and rescheduling, where such activities are optional in the shortest possible time. Roadblocks are there, damages to bridges and roads owing to natural calamities are the major reasons for such free routing. We have seen in the past, we have heard that trucks in lines are waiting due to some slides or due to floods. These are the examples. That means in that case, free routing has to be done, and we have to prepare it. We have to keep ourselves prepared for that conditions. We can plan our travel plans well in advance, but when criticalities are criticalities, and one has to accept such contingencies. Everything doesn't happen as planned. And therefore, every company should gear up for alternative arrangements, involving alternative routes, boards, and schedules in case the movement in the shipment is involved. Delay in delivery due to routing problems increases cost of the goods manufactured. Therefore, to tide over this, the company has to plan these activities well in advance with detailed coordination and judicious and realistic planning. Companies have to gear itself into such changing scenarios and train such that at very inception. Efficient versus inefficient routing can save tremendous amount of money in fuel, labor, and capital expenditures and significantly enhance customer satisfaction. But the thing is that there are still some things which are not in the human control. We have to keep that thing into consideration also. Now, our main objective should be to minimize the total route cost, number of routes, distance traveled, and route time. The constraints that are customer requirements and time available, balancing of the route for the driver to minimize overtaxing, maximum route time, vehicle capacity, start and stop points and route, and infrastructure constraints. This is basically an operational factors for figure which depicts operational factors for deciding the transport mode. You can see that what are the operational factors. It is customer characteristics, environmental, product, and the type. Then we have to characterize what are the characteristics of transport mode. They are road, rail, air, through water. Then comes the choice of transport. That means we have to keep in mind the cost and the customer service. The various characteristics of alternate transportation mode are useful load, that is the physical capability, and maximum load as percentage of gross weight. Then comes your density, it's cargo density, that is the weight per cubic unit. Overheads, fixed cost as a percentage of total cost, and the productivity, that is calculated in tons miles per direct metal hour. This is how the, our transportation mode is used. It is very important to establish and determine the accurate operating characteristics of each available transport mode so that suitability of matching these to the operating factors can be established. Then comes your channelization, that is multi-mode transport operations. The choice of transport mode is not only a choice between the type of the transport, but between the system or a process of transportation, between manufacturer or seller and customer or buyer. It involves separate sectors between the production line to godowns, warehouses, material handling interfaces, and each terminal facility, and the documentation process to support the product. The complete market channel has to be defined and each sector demarcated and analyzed separately for transport network in coordination with customer characteristics, volume, and the operating environment through which the operation is carried out. Each of the sector would require separate transport to be precise. Here we can see that how this channel or different types of channels work. At the top it is the manufacturers, then comes your nature of goods, that is capital goods. If we talk about capital goods, it is in the form of generators, transformers, heavy equipment. That means they are directly sold to the consumers. And if we talk about expendable perishable goods, that is food products, rice, eatables, in that case, they are straight away when transform the transport into the commodity market through wholesalers, retailers, is which is consumer or the end users. In case of consumer durables, such as fridge, music system, washing machines, household, three levels are there. That is central warehouse, regional godown, retailer, and then comes the end. This is how we have to keep in mind, depending the selection of the transportation in terms of the product. What are the factors to be considered while analyzing the transport requirement of each sector? That means what arises, what should be the basic guideline. Fit of them, these are control, ownership, finances, security to improve documentation and product, and responsive information system, movement of product, handling, requirement of stocks at each level, packaging and safety standards, market factors, labor, what kind of training is required. Then comes your turnover of goods and manpower, risk factors, competitiveness and profit potential. And the last, it is the environmental realities. Though the criteria for assessment is simple, the complications get multiplied by identifying the needs to calculate revenue expected incurred during utilization of product particular mode, as in packaging and labor. Sometimes it happens that repackaging has to be done. That means revenue or the cost is going to be. Capital expenditure incurred in utilization of a particular mode, as in mechanical equipment at the terminals, and associated risk with any capital asset with a life of over 2 years, where the assets would require changes and modifications. These are basically commercials. Then, what are the tools and techniques of reducing costs? No doubt, we have discussed so many things over. At the end, everything has to be good. That means we have to now look at the cost factor and what are how they can be reduced. As a logistics manager, one has to dwell considerably on the correct selection of the fleet, which will further aid in reducing costs and indirectly help in reducing the cost of the product at the end user. The following functions are the domain of logistics manager. That means what the logistics manager has to perform. What are his duties? What are other what are in which mode he works? That is negotiating routes and names, selection, route and fleet, evaluation of the carrier performance, analyze transport costs and services, operating company-owned means of freight and transportation, and finding loss and damages claims. Here we know that in India there are different modes and different infrastructure are there for the transport. There are basic four are there, that is railway, road, water, and air, and they have enormous potential to work upon. If you take in case of railways, there are approximately 63,000 kilometers of line, 7,000 stations. We are right now using three gauges. Earlier we were using three gauges, but right now we are using only a broad gauge. There are 12 million passengers, 1 million tonnage of flights per day. And you might be knowing that Indian Railways have made a flight corridor. That means all the flight related rails will be run on the separate track which is dedicated to flight. That is known as flight corridor. Actually, the entire selection process is very complex work, and one should aim at identifying the right attributes required to implement the company's customer service policy. Now the question arises, what are the key attributes? As Current performance as regards delivery accuracy and reliability. Responsibility acceptance to guarantee the service product offered. Offering flexibility so as to respond to criticalities and emergencies. Information for purpose of control. Financial stability to ensure continuity of service and for upgrading of equipment. And lastly, it is the integration to the maximum into customer business, sharing confidence, problems, and capabilities. Now, identification has been done. Now, it has to be brought to the next stage, that is the recording. That means documentation, which means transportation documentation. As transportation carriers often are value goods, the movement and transfer of those goods should be traced and documented properly. Various documents are needed to verify the acceptance and receipt of goods before, after shipment, and clarify the ownership of those goods. These documents includes a bill of lading, a carrier's certificate, delivery receipts, flight bills, shipping manifesto, shipper's declaration for dangerous goods, a shipper's certification for live animals, and other documents needed for flight length. Normally, what we do as a human being, we just straight away go to the center and say that this has to be sent. He provides us a paper, a bill. We never read it. What is written over there? There are the conditions which are written. And before taking up the roads, they ask basically, does this include any inflammable material or what does it contain? It is a document or what is the nature of the product? It is to be shown. These are the basic things. This is a parcel, and when it is a huge volume, which is closed under a container, that means all these legal formalities have to be done and to be performed. Among these, a bill of lading, that's in short we call it as BIL, is one of the most important documents. A BIL is a document issued to a consignee by a carrier listing and acknowledging that the specified goods have been received on board as cargo for conveyance to a named place for delivery to the consignee, who is usually identified as HTTP em.wikipedia.org/wiki bill of lading. Then your most important part is the transport management system. We call it as TMS. With rising transportation expenses due to fluctuation of fuel price and rising labor cost, there is an increasing need to streamline all aspects of transportation operations, identify any cost-cutting opportunities, and improve supply chain visibility. This can be done through transparent transportation planning. For such a requirement, a transportation management system, what it as TMS, is appropriate. Now the thing is that what does it include? Order processing, road planning, carrier selection, vehicle routing or scheduling, flight consolidation, claims administration, flight bill payment, and not the least, last but not the least, these are all the examples of transportation management system. This TMS, with the usage and with the passage of time, has recently expanded into additional features that can handle the real-time asset management. You can see where your parcel is, in which mode it is, which place it has reached, yard management. This is related to the materials which are posted by different modes, event management with shipping, shipment tracking, shipping demand prioritization, import-export documentation, multimodal operations, hazardous material transportation, such as petrol, kerosene, gas, reverse logistics when it's coming back, and the performance management. In response to the increasing complexity and globalization of transportation activities, this, these things have been, these features rather, have been added in TMS. If properly executed, a TMS brings numerous managerial benefits. These benefits include increased customer satisfaction through optimum route configuration, scheduling, delivery confirmation, and timely claims processing. This part is being now used by all courier companies. Even the Indian Post is using it. Cost saving. TMS users reported that 5 to 30% cost transportations cost saving is there, and about 80% of the users had 1 or 2 years of payback periods. Improve supply chain visibility through real-time shipment tracking and an advanced shipping model. So everything we are now shifting to e-farm, that is electronic farm. That means reduce paperwork through automation. What are the futuristic directions in transportation? This is what we have been doing, and now we will be discussing what we can think of. One salient aspect that we have to understand that with e-services, our lead time to delivery has reduced considerably. But somehow the movement of the products and the raw materials, the force cannot go through e-service and have to restrict movement to the roads, rail, air, and waterways. Yes, the order can be placed through e-services in a faster mode, and so the payment can be made, but product has to move physically. It cannot move through net. A truck, rail, wagon, or a ship or a cargo aircraft has to move it from the place to origin to the customer destination. Transportation too has improved considerably with the advent of technology and mechanical developments within a short span. Everything is changing. We are changing to e-network things that this transportation is also has been transformed. That means what are the other activities which can be clubbed? That is carrier relationship management. Speedy movement across the globe have also given rise to lack of coordination and planning, resulting in criticalities too. These programs are designed to formalize communication, partnering, negotiating, and performance monitoring aspects of carriers. Then comes the corporate traffic policies. This helps in bringing together all the personal workings in the area of transportation within an enterprise. Training and certification. Corporations should aim at making and maintaining transportation as a value-added activity. Daily deliver quality. Improvements in drivers with better working environment and better wages will help in a big way to improve the driver's capability and capacity even more. Joint procurement. This is a significant cost reduction and can be carried out if the purchase and negotiation of transportation services is consolidated across both inbound and outbound transportation activities within a business or across units or even with non-competitors. Logistics compliance and security officers forming the chief logistics security officer will enable a company to cope with global logistics law and to anticipate security lapses in the logistics network. Now we move to facility location. Another thing is that what does this comprise of? Facilities and their location are major issues in an organization's system. Efficiency and its ability to successfully implement its competitive advantage. Facility location decisions are of major importance to a company's ability to compete. Determining appropriate location for facilities such as plants, warehouses, retail stores, hospitals, etc., represents an important strategic decision. The choice of location of the place of business is one of the earliest facing management. Location decisions come under the category of long-term decisions because if we have started a production unit at place A, within a period of 6 months, we cannot change it to another place. We have to plan it for a long term. In that case, if it involves long-term commitments, a plant location decision cannot be reviewed until after quite some time as they involve huge investments. There are three location options: expanding an existing facility instead of moving. Second one is maintaining current location while adding another facility elsewhere. Third one is closing the existing facility and moving to another one. These are the three options. Not normally, but we can think of them. These are to be performed. The location decision is very much dependent on the type of the business. For industrial location decision, the strategy is usually minimizing costs. For retail and service organizations like hospitals and hotels, the location decision focuses on maximizing revenue. And the location strategy of warehouse is driven by a combination of cost and speed of the delivery. Normally, if we are talking in terms of hospital, we try to start up a hospital venture near to the residential places where the services can be provided, but the patients can reach it timely. The objective of location strategy is to maximize the benefit of location to the fund. This figure depicts the key elements of the logistics system or the production distribution system. Now the thing is that how the dark arrow shows the flow of goods. That means it starts from suppliers to the manufacturing plant to the warehouse to the retail store, and then to the customer. And this dotted arrow, which is moving in the reverse direction, are providing the information. The key elements of the production distribution system are transportation, inventory, and order processing. The main objective of location decision is to position each element of the production distribution system with respect to the overall system. A manufacturing plant must be strategically positioned between its supplier and customer. The location problem is more complex for large firms. They must position both plants and warehouses simultaneously with respect to suppliers, retail outlets, and each other. Rarely, all these facilities are located simultaneously. We know that Pepsi is an international brand. In India, they are having 4 units of production. And at 4 corners, and you can see, you can think over how their supply chain works. Plant location, there are two factors which are used or on which the location decisions are based. That is quantitative or objective factors and qualitative or subjective factors. These objective factors involve cost of the land, transportation cost, utility rates, etc. And the subjective factor includes labor availability, climate, community environment, quality of life, and local governments. And in a broad sense, we can see that how these are linked clubbed together. If we talk in terms of transportation factors, it is the proximity to the raw material source, closeness to the market, mode of transportation, and transportation costs. Utility factors includes power, water, fuel, waste disposal. Labor factor, labor can be easily available. What are the labor laws and availability of the skilled labor, labor costs. Climate, community, and environment that means what are the climatic and the living conditions of people over there. Environmental regulation related to the weather. Education and other demographic factors. Community attitude and religious factors. And lastly, it is the states and the local political factors. It includes the taxation policies, tax structure, and political risks. What are the steps in location planning? Location planning involves the following four steps. First one, to determine the criteria to evaluate location alternatives. No doubt we have in our mind to minimize the cost because every part has a cost component associated with it. Secondly, identify relevant location factors. Thirdly, it is develop location alternatives, which includes identify the general region, identify a small number of community site alternatives, and evaluate the alternatives and make a selection. Now, how to design for sustainable supply chain? We have discussed what are the different factors which are involved. Now, how to finalize a sustainable supply chain. The rise of new technologies, new forms of competition, and new ideas to add. Customer values have begun to redefine the basics of supply chain designs and strategies. Product life cycles are being compressed. Services are becoming commodities in every shorter time spans. Intellectual capital and proprietary technologies, once protected by layers of patents and covered in corporate secrecy, have become widely available. Building and sustaining competitive advantage requires firms to learn and adapt at an ever faster rate in order to distinguish themselves from competitors. Eddie Grove, the chairman of Intel, in his popular book, Only the Paranoid Survive, uses the term inflection point to categorize the nature of the profound, sudden changes in the environment that often spells a major crisis for the firms. What are the factors influencing supply chain designs? The rising importance of knowledge work. In many industries, knowledge work has become primary conditions that defines how well firms innovate and compete with one another. The shift towards knowledge work has a greater emphasis on how well the managers can attract or retain talent. This is normally it is the human psychology that after a period of time, when once you get an exposure, you want to live. Now it is the job of the organization to retain you. In places such as Silicon Valley and other hotbeds of innovation, the recruitment, training, and development of knowledgeable workers shape a firm's basis for future technologies and product ideas. Growth of substitute product and services. Normally, whenever a thing comes into the market, we try to keep an or it is we try to make a substitute. Firms in related or neighboring industries often produce substitutes. The innovation of substitute products creates opportunity for new entrants and innovators to change the way firms compete. For example, the rise of internet-based telephony threatens traditional phone companies such as AT&T. The growth of video on demand threatens the infrastructure of many entertainment and network-based firms. Rising information intensity. The growing information intensive nature of many industries means the cost of creating and disseminating information are steadily declining over time as the information content becomes richer. For example, the value of email as a service to the users grows as it becomes more pervasive and easier to use. Now people are using it. What is the impact of shifting landscape? As companies deal with the numerous changes and challenges posed by epicenters of massive change, it is important that managers broaden the scope of their skills to accommodate and learn new insights that will happen when it becomes more effective. The impact of frequent and massive changes on an industry can be expressed in three ways. That is, commoditization of new technologies. One major trend reshaping of a variety of industries in the growing availability of state of the art of technology to anyone who wants it today. Innovations are becoming commodity-like products. For example, new technology products like virus scanning software and fast modems to connect with Internet are rapidly become standard features in many of today's computer and electronic products. Rather, we can see that we have internet in our mobiles. That means probably new technologies are coming and different softwares are coming. Rapidly declining unit cost. Even some of the most sophisticated forms of knowledge are becoming widely available on the internet for a very low cost and in several cases for free. Burden of strategic commitment. Change often requires a new managerial mindsets and a willingness to challenge assumptions about how to add value to emerging customer needs. Sustaining competitive advantage. The thing is that everybody wants to sustain in criteria in which they are moving. Companies can only survive and prosper if they are flexible enough to adapt the changes required as per the current need of customer. That means you have to change yourself. The company has to think in that way and they have to change the whole criteria. They need to recognize that their customers are able to dictate prices and offerings their products and services have already become commodities. Companies are able to generate high profitability to the extent that they are able to differentiate themselves in a significant way from their competitors. They must balance their organization's design to promote the kind of innovation, experimentation, and thinking that will encourage self-renewal and reinvention. Demand-driven supply network (DDSN). This is the emerging trends. Demand-driven supply networks are supply chain driven by the voice of the customer. It is a shorthand term for the next generation supply chain that has been taking shape for some time. It simply means building all supply chain processes, infrastructure, and information flow to serve the downstream source of demand whether a consumer is in supermarket or in the Department of Defense. Deviation matters to growth, profitability, and valuation. Companies cost time and efficiency advantages that boost profits. It also positions winners to grow with dramatically faster response to business opportunities at the level of lower stockouts for current products and as much as 70% faster time to market for new products. More innovations with better perfect product launch performance means more business opportunities seized at a customer or market demand invoice. With this, we will be ending today's session.